of Lord Nrsingadev in 2 days. So this is a warm-up, or this is our public celebration because of the proximity of Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day and this Sunday. So what you see on the screen, hopefully, there we go, you see a nice painting of Prahlada Maharaj. Just like the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra are inseparable from Hanuman, his devotee, and the appearance of, even more so, in one sense, the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev is for the purpose of giving protection to Prahlad. Little research about, are there other stories or other leelas of Lord Nrsingadev and other Puranas or somewhere, anywhere, other than his coming to protect Prahlad Maharaj and annihilate Hiranyakashipu? I asked many scholars and only came up with one very remote pastime, very obscure. The main purpose of Lord Nrsingadev's appearance is his Vatsalya affection and protection for Prahlad Maharaj. And the protection of Prahlad Maharaj is not just from physical harm, because the protection from physical harm was already achieved without his appearing. He was protected by the Supreme Lord from the very heinous efforts, cruel, vicious efforts of his father to harm him, destroy him. And they were unsuccessful. But the appearance of the personality of Godhead in his form of Nrsingadev, we'll see shortly. Well, I'll mention. It was to uphold the word of Brahma. The word of Brahma was a benediction given to Hiranyakashipu that he could be killed this way, that way, and the other way. So he appeared in a form, in a way that didn't contradict the Lord Brahma. And very uniquely, he appeared from a pillar. Most of the forms of the Lord, there are others. Lord Varaha appeared from the nostril of Lord Brahma. But otherwise, commonly, there's this reciprocation with loving affection of the devotee, where the Lord appears as the son of mother and father. Well, Lord Nrsingadev didn't appear as from any mother or father. He appeared from a pillar. And it's stated specifically in the Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 8, that Lord appeared from a pillar specifically to uphold the word of Prahlad, because the word of Prahlad was that he's everywhere. So he upheld the word of Prahlad. Here I am, coming from a pillar. So that's what we're celebrating. And prior to the Lord's appearance is teachings of Prahlad that he very compassionately bestowed upon, of all people, his Asurya Vaj father, the best of the Asura, the best of the demons, Hiranyakashipu. He offered teachings to Hiranyakashipu and to Shanda and Amarka, and of course very extensively to his classmates. So this evening we're going to discuss 4 of those many teachings, and we'll head off by giving some appreciation of how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enjoyed very much hearing this story of Prahlad Maharaj. Perhaps you recognize, some of you I'm sure do, you recognize this painting. The painting is a painting commissioned by King Prataparudra during his lifetime. He wanted an artist to depict a painting where he was with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if you were King Prataparudra, during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you might think that it would be a pastime where the Lord is performing Sankirtan. And during his Sankirtan, you're there. The king is there with Lord Chaitanya and his associates doing congregational chanting. But that's not what King Prataparudra did. As you see in the painting, he's the one that's prostrated before a whole assembly of Vaishnavas. It's at Narendra Sarovar. Those of you who have been to Puri, you'll recognize that black and white tile floor that's around the perimeter of the Sarovar. And behind him is Gadadhar Pandit reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's not just Gadadhar Pandit and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's a whole assembly. Behind him with the shaved head is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Next to him with long black hair, that's Lord Nityananda. And behind Lord Chaitanya is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya with the long white hair. And then the other associates are Ramananda Roy and Srup Damodar and Jagadananda Pandit and so on. There's a Bengali painting where in Bengali script it identifies who's who. And standing up there hanging some clothes, little chubby side, is Haridas Thakur. I don't know if Haridas Thakur was chubby like that, but that's how they painted him. And we find in Chaitanya Bhagavat that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would hear every day for hours, every day, the Srimad Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit. Now, it may not have been with all the assembled persons, but in addition to the Nama Sankirtan, there was this recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. And specifically, he's mentioned, he liked very much to hear the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj, and would hear them again and again. You know, in ISKCON, it kind of is, I've heard that one already, what's new? That's not the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's, say it again, say it again. That's our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So all of you know the pastime very well, most likely, and have heard it again and again, so let's hear it again. Remembering how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did the same. And we get entrance into these pastimes primarily through the gift of Srimad Bhagavatam given to us by Srila Prabhupada. So before we launch, we'll remember Srila Prabhupada and the gift that he gave the world. In the prayers that we're going to, the teachings that we're going to speak come from chapter 5. In the introduction section to chapter 6, Prabhupada writes the following. I find it very significant. It summarizes the whole of the pastime. By accepting the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj, who is in the parampara succession. Where's the water? One will be able to understand the mode of spiritual life. It's underlined, so I'll read it again. One will be able to understand the mode of spiritual life. I mean, mood, but mode. In accepting this mode of activity, there is no need for material qualification. So just drill down that on a little bit. accepting the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj. Now, how do you do that? Because he's not physically available. If he was physically available, you could approach him and ask his permission and grasp his lotus feet and take shelter. But he's not physically available. So how do you take shelter? Accept the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj. So that's a Vaishnava phrase that is equivalent to take his instructions and live by his instructions, take those instructions to heart, and that means you live by them. And you serve the instructions. So we're going to hear some teachings of Prahlad. Those are instructions. That's how you accept his lotus feet. And by accepting those instructions, accepting the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj, one will be able to understand the mode of spiritual life. Now there's procedures and, how many times you offer a stick of incense to the feet and to the head and to the arms, etc. of the Lord. And how many, the bell that you ring and the mantras that you say when you're offering your food and so forth. There's procedures that we observe, but the mode of spiritual life is the essence or the mood or the heart of spiritual life. And an important part of what we learn from Prahlad Maharaj is there's no need for material qualifications to do that. Say it negatively. There's no material disqualification. Stated positively, there's no need for material qualifications. You may be from wherever, of such a birth or such intelligence or socioeconomic or language or culture or whatever. There's no requirement and there's no disqualification. It's take shelter of the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj, and then we can understand the mode. So here are some of his instructions, starting with his teachings to Hiranyakashipu. So this is chapter 5. There's 4 lessons we're going to spend time with. Once upon a time, the king of demons, Hiranyakashipu, took his son Prahlad on his lap and very affectionately inquired. Very natural for a father. My dear son, please let me know what you think is the best of the subjects you have studied from your teachers. Now, Hiranyakashipu was most likely thinking Shandanamarka, his teachers, sons of Shukracharya. But Prahlad was not just thinking Shandanamarka, Prahlad was thinking Narada Muni. And so here's a celebrated verse. Many of you know the verse. Prabhupada would recite this verse often. Nasatu manye sura varya dehinam. Asura varya. Asura varya. He didn't say dad or my beloved father. He said the varya amongst the asuras. Dehinam, of those who have accepted a material body. Sada, they're always samudvigna dhyam. Their intelligence is bewildered by asat grahat, by the acceptance of materialistic family life. Hitvatma patram griham andakupam. They're like a person who's fallen into a blind well. Now, we don't have blind wells here in America, but there are wells. And there's such a thing as a blind well is a well that went dry and people stopped using it and grass grew over the top of the blind well. So you don't even see it, just looks like land. But it's not land, it's a well. I know somebody that fell down a blind well and died in India. It was a very sad situation. And so here's the translation. There's the image that goes with it. Here's Prahlada's reply. O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has dehinam, accepted a material body, and temporary asatgrahat, temporary household life, is certainly embarrassed by anxiety, samudvigna dhyam, embarrassed by anxiety, because of having fallen in a dark well, andakupam, where there's no water, but only suffering. That's the best thing he's learned. But there's the bright side, and the bright side is his recommendation. This is the teaching or instruction. Such a person should give up this position and go to the forest, vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan. That's Prabhupada's insertion, and you see Radha Shyama Sundar in Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Go to Vrindavan. Go to Vrindavan and take shelter of Radha Shyama Sundar. And they're most merciful and most beautiful. Now that was a nice teaching. And you would think that Hiranyakashipu would be really proud of his son, but he was the opposite. He became very angry. Hiranyakashipu became very angry and decided that this small boy had been polluted by some friend in school. Thus, he advised the teachers to take care of the boy so that he would not become a devotee. So, Shanda and Amarka, they were really on the spot, because you don't cross Hiranyakashipu if you want to live. And so they went and harassed him very, very severely. Not only Hiranyakashipu harassed him, Shanda and Amarka harassed him. They did it in a Brahminical way, but they harassed him. According to the Bhagavatam, Shanda and Amarka began teaching Prahlada in their own way, but he did not accept their instructions. And they tried and they tried and they tried, but it was a lost cause. He was already so absorbed in devotion that he had no interest in all of what they were teaching. And so then they asked him, how have you learned these instructions? How has your intelligence been spoiled? Now, two things. They understood he didn't just come up with it on his own. He received it from someone. So they want to know what's the source, because they want to cut off the source. And they considered, the second is they considered what he had heard and was speaking as having spoiled his intelligence. Now that's how demoniac brahmanas or demoniac anybody's views the teachings of devotion to the personality of Godhead. It's a spoiled intelligence. It's exactly the opposite for those who are pious people. They consider a child that speaks, seeking shelter of the personality of Godhead, as being so wonderful, a blessing. So now comes the next set of teachings. And it's very, very specific. And the way that he emphasizes this is important. The essence of these second set of teachings is the distinction between friend and enemy. Because those that have a bodily conception of life see in terms of friend and enemy. Say it negatively. If you don't have a bodily conception of life, you won't see in terms of friend and enemy. Or if you have a bodily conception of life, guaranteed you're going to see in terms of friend and enemy. There are those people that are helping me, and they make me happy, and those people that are not helping me, and they're an enemy. There's someone I got to look out for. Friend and enemy. It's same as I and mine. And if you're not mine, then you're against me. That's just part of material consciousness. So here's the several part reply. This is a teaching. Then by taking shelter of these teachings, you're taking shelter of the lotus feet of Prahlada Maharaj. And by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Prahlada Maharaj, you'll be able to accept the mode of pure devotional service. So let's go. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose external energy has created the distinctions of my friend and my enemy by diluting the intelligence of men. That's material intelligence, friend, enemy. Indeed, I am now actually experiencing this, although I have previously heard it from authoritative sources. Now, Prahlada was so innocent, and his innocence was nourished by his instructions of Narada. So from Narada, he heard about this thing called material conception of life and material intelligence. But now he's seeing it in real life before him in the form of no other than his Brahmana teachers, friend and enemy people. It's a distinction created by the illusory energy. Let's say it the other way. There's no such thing. But one sees such thing because of the influence of the external energy. Then he gives the contrasting perspective. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with the living entity because of his devotional service, one becomes a pandita and does not make distinctions between enemies, friends, and himself. Intelligently he thinks, underlined, every one of us is the eternal servant of God. Now that's a nice way to describe the spiritual conception. It's not only the tiny spiritual spark within the body, and that's a spiritual conception, but there's something that you do. The spiritual conception is those little sparks eternally serve God, including Sandha and Amarka, but in a diluted position. So one sees that way. Intelligence is given by the personality of Godhead because of their taking shelter and mood of service to him. And therefore we are not different from one another. Persons who always think in terms of enemy and friend, sva, pare, in terms of friend and enemy, they can't see the supersoul. They can't see themselves. They can't see others properly, and they certainly can't see the supersoul. Atma abodhibhir, unable to ascertain the Supreme Soul within themselves. Not to speak of them, even such exalted persons as Lord Brahma, who are fully conversant with Vedic literature, are sometimes bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. Muyanti yat vartmani Veda vadino. We've all heard Prabhupada use this phrase Veda Vada or Veda Vada Rata. the so-called followers of the Vedas. Now he's very boldly including Lord Brahma in this category, but it's from the same as the introductory verse of the Bhagavatam. Muyanti yat surayaha. Muyanti yat surayaha. Even the devas, the suras, they become muyanti, they become bewildered, and thus can't understand the personality of Godhead completely, as well as Prahlad can understand the personality of Godhead, because they have this friend and enemy conception. They're devotees. They're devotees. Okay, let's see if you can sit still or not. Not easy, right? I sympathize. How old are you? 7. We have a 7-year-old that's in the front row and is a little playful. And he's in the front row. So that's the distraction for those of you that are not in the front row. He's a nice boy, but he's 7 years old. He likes to play. Okay. The same Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created this situation has certainly given me intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. So, we're devotees, and we have people that don't understand a life of devotion. No, some people do, some people don't, and some people are indifferent. But those that don't, it's where we can learn from Prahlad how to understand those that don't, and not feel inimical towards them because they're seeing friend and enemy towards you or against you, enemy against you. You're disturbing their proprieties and their sensibilities, etc. It happens. Prabhupada would often speak about this, that when you become a devotee, please understand, he would refer to Jesus Christ or Haridas Thakur, or so many persons will not appreciate what you're doing, and they'll go out of their way to cause some disturbance. It happens. It's not like you have to go on Harinam Sankirtan and then they'll come and disturb you. You can just be sitting in your home, and it's unfortunate. It happens, and so we're learning, not just in the palace of Hiranyakashipu, but in the world. There's this law of nature. And the law of nature works, regardless of the yuga and regardless of the company that you're in. There's always the divine and demoniac nature. And those with the demoniac nature have this friends and enemy conception. They can't see the super soul, and they become bewildered. Now, how does the devotee, at least how does Prahlad see such people? Well, he sees that they're seeing the way that they're seeing. He sees the way that they're seeing because of the deluding potency. And for that reason, you're seeing me in this category of enemy, so-called enemy. Prahlad admitted, my dear teachers, Prabhupada speaking, you wrongly think that Lord Vishnu is your enemy, but because he is favorable toward me, I understand that he is the friend of everyone. You may think that I have taken the side of your enemy, but factually, he has bestowed a great favor upon me. Now they want to know, like, where'd you get this bad stuff? Where'd you get this awful bhakti teaching? And he doesn't say, I got it from Narada. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say he didn't either. But he's saying because bhakti is there, the Lord has bestowed these understandings. And then he goes on to say, O brahmanas or teachers, as iron attracted by magnet stone moves automatically toward the magnet, my consciousness, having been changed by his will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc in his hand. Thus I have no independence. So they want to cut off the source of this polluted devotional conception that he has. And he says it's, not just it's too late, but I have this spontaneous attraction for him. The understandings are coming spontaneously. I mean, he doesn't say, I heard from Narada. He didn't say, I didn't hear from Narada. He's just saying the Lord is given, because the Lord is the source of that remembrance and knowledge and forgetfulness. So they're in the forgetful position and seeing friend enemy, and he is being shown favor by the Supreme Lord, where he doesn't see like that. He doesn't see like that. Even they're harassing him and causing him difficulty. So what's the source? It's just the Lord in my heart. Spontaneously, I'm attracted to Vishnu and I can't help it. It's something similar to what Haridas Thakur said to the Qazi that was, why do you do like this? Just say the name of the Lord that found in your scripture. And he said, if you cut my body into little pieces, I'll still chant. That means the chanting is from the soul, not the body is the cause. Or my value system is such that for such personalities, and it's a lesson to learn from us, something that's, when chanting is very strong and effective, it's from the heart. So that's where we practice, along with the mouth and the mind, but it's the heart. Then there's you have really good chanting. And that's Prahlada. So the teachers were given a chance to correct Prahlada because Hiranyakashipu wrongly deduced that one of the students had polluted him. But when that wasn't the case, some time passed, and once again, Hiranyakashipu sets Prahlada on his lap and asks him a very similar question. Hiranyakashipu took Prahlada on his lap and very affectionately inquired about what he had studied from his teachers. Here's what Hiranyakashipu said. My dear Prahlada, my dear son, oh, long-lived one. He has affection. For so much time you have heard many things from your teachers. Now please repeat to me whatever you think is the best of that knowledge. Well, Hiranyakashipu is in for a surprise. Because Prahlada, what he heard in the womb from Narada, Prahlada Maharaj responded to the inquiry of his father with the instructions he had received from his spiritual master Narada. And so here's the third, you know the verse, because we recite it regularly. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam, Sakyam Atmani Vedanam. Very celebrated verse, spoken by Prahlada, giving the 9 processes of bhakti. And in the painting it shows those 9. But of those 9, Prahlada perfectly exemplifies Vishnu Smaranam, because even in the most disturbing of circumstances, he was able to constantly remember the personality of Godhead. Well, it's a disturbing circumstance just being sitting on the lap of Hiranyakashipu, and saying what you know is going to flip him out. And sure enough, he flipped out. Hiranyakashipu was extremely angry. His lips trembled, and he spoke as follows to Shanda. Maybe Amarka was hiding under the cushion or something. Oh, unqualified, most heinous son of a Brahmana, you have disobeyed my order and taken shelter of the party of my enemies. He thinks the same as his teachers. You have taught this poor boy about devotional service. Because his question was, what's the best thing you've learned from your teachers? And he hears devotional service. So why'd you do this? You've disobeyed my order. And they replied, no, Kovet, Hiranyakashipu. They didn't say that. Whatever your son Prahlad has said was not taught to him by me or anyone else, because he said it was spontaneously coming from his heart. His spontaneous devotional service has naturally developed in him. Therefore, please give up your anger and do not unnecessarily accuse us. It's not good to insult the Brahmana in this way. So he's quick to blame Shanda and Amarka, and Shanda and Amarka say, we were given the assignment to find out who polluted this boy. But he's spontaneously polluted. It's just a natural devotee. When Hiranyakashipu received this reply from the teacher, he again addressed Prahlad. You rascal, most fallen of our family, if you have not received this education from your teachers, where have you gotten it? Natural question. And he gets an answer he doesn't like. This is another teaching. There's a series of verses that are, again, often repeated by Srila Prabhupada in his classes. Matirna Krishna Paratak Svatova Mito Bibadyeta Grahak Vratanam Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram Punak Punashcharvata Charvananam. Anyone that's heard Prabhupada's lectures knows this verse very well, especially the last line. Punak Punashcharvata Charvananam. Or Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram. Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram. Because of their uncontrolled senses, Adanta Gobir, persons too addicted to material life, Grahak Vratanam, too addicted to material life, Grahak Vratanam, make progress towards hellish condition, Vishatam Tamishram. Their inclination towards Krishna is never aroused. Matir na Krishna abhipadyeta. Never aroused. Either by, there's these different options. Instructions of others, their own efforts, or a combination of both. If somebody wants to improve, they can make an effort, they can get good instructions from others, or a combination of two, and they can improve. But if someone is too addicted to a materialistic life, they can't. So there's a degree of a willingness to let go of materialistic life. It's a prerequisite. Now, this teaching of Prahlad is a theme that comes again and again in the Bhagavatam. One of the places where that theme comes, we've been discussing for a past couple of months in covering the Uddhava Gita section of the Bhagavatam. Krishna is very emphatic. So far, 4 chapters in a row on just this one thing. the necessity of becoming detached from the temporary, from thinking oneself the enjoyer of the temporary. Because that's an obstacle. It's a prerequisite to let go of the temporary in the mood of being the enjoyer of the temporary, specifically. The mood of being the enjoyer of the temporary, in order to make progress on the path of bhakti. So, this is a teaching of Prahlada to his father. He's basically saying, Dad, you're never going to understand. You've asked me. He's not saying, where'd you get it? He's not saying, even if I told you, you wouldn't get it. Why won't you get it? You're too much addicted to materialistic life. And the result of that addiction to materialistic life, Vishatam Tamishram, you're progressing towards hellish conditioning. Punak punash charvata charvananam, chewing the chewed. The example Prabhupada would traditionally give about chewing the chewed was a sugar cane having all the juice squeezed out of the sugar cane, and the sugar cane vendor leaves it by the side of the road. Somebody comes along and picks up the sugar cane where there's no juice and chews on it. No juice, because it's been removed. So the chewing the chewed example is that one. There's no juice, but people do it again and again and again. Why do they do it again and again? It's really not intelligent. So why do they do it again and again? They're still thinking there's some happiness there. There's happiness in the temporary. There's happiness in bringing the senses in contact with sense objects, and there's some happiness there. This Bhagavad Gita lesson, Yehi samsparsha ja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. It's not only no juice, it's dukkha. No sukha, but dukkha. It's just, but so if it's no sukha and just dukkha, why do people do it again and again? Because they're like donkeys. They think they have to just do it more or do it smarter or do it differently, or somehow there's happiness there in the chewed, having done it again and done it again. So it's very simple teaching, and you would think, okay, I get it. We've been discussing this because, as I just mentioned, somebody some time ago requested, can you discuss Uddhava Gita? And I looked, how many chapters? It's a lot of chapters. And it's very philosophical. It's like, kind of weighty philosophical discussion. But the beginning part is just the same message over and over. And even after hearing the same message over and over, it's like, okay, I get it. Don't try to enjoy the temporary. I got it. Knowledge and detachment. Okay, thank you. And yet the tendency to try to be the enjoyer of the temporary continues. Doesn't it? And that's an obstacle on the path of bhakti. It's an obstacle by which people can't even understand anything, even if you tell them anything. So you start at square one. That is, let go of trying to be the enjoyer of the temporary. Uncontrolled senses. Uncontrolled, adanta gobir, uncontrolled senses. And when the senses, one of the primary ways, and as well as goals, is this benediction, Krishna matir astu. Now, just a little sharing. There's some places where we have Bhagavatam installations, and people buy books and they want, as a sannyasi visiting their home or something, can you sign? I think, gosh, what? Put my signature in your Bhagavad Gita. Kind of embarrassing. So I like to write this: Krishna matirastu. May you always remember Krishna. Let your attention and traction be upon Krishna. So propose. Krishna Matirastu. May your attention be on Krishna. The obstacle, Adanta Gopir. This is Prahlad's teaching to his father. His father wants to know, where'd you get this if you didn't get it from your teachers? Basically, Dad, you wouldn't understand even if I told you. Because you can't control your senses. You can't understand. Nate vidu svartagatim vishnum. Again, how many times have we heard that from our founder Acharya? All over the place. This is Prahlad. Na te vid means it's the dhatu is vid, to know. Veda comes from that. Veda comes from vid. Na te vidu. They don't understand. Sva artha gatim. Their own self-interest is Vishnu. He, certainly. Durashaya. Durashaya, here's the word for word. The consciousness of enjoying material life. Dur ashaya. Asha is desire. Dur asha is bad desire. Or enjoying material life. Attachment to the temporary and being the enjoyer of it. And without spiritual training, that's the lifestyle. And even with spiritual training, we're kind of like stuck on enjoying the temporary while trying to practice spiritual life. It's not like shame on you because you've got this defect. It's just where the sadhana bhakti stage begins, and then we struggle with it. And it goes up and down like a sine curve, up and down. And take shelter of the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj means understand his teachings and bring those teachings inside your heart and live by them. That's how you take shelter of the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj. And then you can understand the mode of pure devotional service. Ye bahir artha manina. Bahir we know from the Shringa prayers. Bahir Nishringo, Hridaye Nishringo, right? Right? Okay. Bahir is outside. Bahir artha, the benefits of life, or the happiness of life, is outside. Manina. Those who have accepted as a leader or guru similar blind men attached to external sense objects. They cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home, back to Godhead, and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. Adanta andha yatandayar upaniyamanas. Blind men guided by another blind man. Miss the right path and fall into a ditch. Materially attached men, led by another materially attached man, are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. Now, you don't talk like this to Hiranyakashipu unless you're Prahlad, because he flies into a rage. He wants to kill him. That's when the appearance of Lord Rishigadev comes in 2 days. There's a Dutch painter that made a very nice painting of this same scene. This is blind men leading other blind men, and unfortunately they end up in the ditch. So it's not a new thing. It's that didn't start with Prahlad Maharaj, or didn't start with the people in Netherlands or Holland, but it's a phenomena. Blind people lead blind people unfortunately, sometimes that happens. So blind people need someone that can see. We all need somebody that can see. And fortunately for Prahlad, he had Narada. He concludes this way. You recognize what that is. You recognize what that is? Prabhupada's lotus feet. Prabhupada's lotus feet. Very moving. Here's the translation. Mahiyasam padarajo bhishekam is the phrase that we're accustomed to hearing. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnav. What kind of Vaishnav? Nikinchananam. Completely freed from material contamination. Persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be freed from material contamination. Now, this is an answer to the question, where'd you learn this? And he's saying, if you want to learn this, you have to take shelter of the lotus feet of a pure devotee of the Lord, one who's free from material contamination. Now, it turns out his son is such a person. But by other means comes the negative. By other means is not possible. And certainly not by the Gyan process. There's a Gyani trying to find out the truth. Here's the Mundaka Upanishad. One cannot become self-realized simply by having an academic education, by presenting lectures in an erudite way, pravachanena labhya, or by being an intelligent scientist who discovers many wonderful things. It doesn't leave too many options. In fact, there's only one option. Devotion to the personality of Godhead that's achieved by taking Raja Abhishek, the purification of the dust from the lotus feet of the pure devotee, and having an Abhishek. Same idea is described elsewhere, another verse that Prabhupada liked a lot, Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Deve Tata Garau Tasyaite Katita Yarta Prakashante Mahatmana. The truths of reality, prakash, they're illuminated or revealed to one who Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yatat Devi Tata Garau, one who takes full shelter, has full faith in the personality of Godhead and the spiritual master. All the truths of the Vedas become revealed to that person. I guess we have some work to do, right? Because all the truths of the Vedas are not fully revealed to us yet. We're somewhere between where we were and where we want to be, but we're not there yet. We were speaking about this yesterday. We belong to the not there yet club. You know, the sadhana bhakti practice where we know what the goal is, but we're not there yet. And we waver. Anishtita bhakti means there's somewhere up and somewhere down and somewhere up and somewhere down, just like our japa, sometimes more attention, sometimes less attention. Badahari called it hills and valleys. And that's our bhakti life in the present stage. We're not there yet stage. But we now know from this verse, and also Prahlad's teaching, implicit faith. That's the adjective that Prabhupada used. Implicit faith. In the words of the spiritual master and the words of Krishna, then we can have all the truths revealed. Another very nice verse from Mundaka Upanishad. The Lord is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. Tanum swam, vivrinute tanum swam, tasyaisha atma vivrinute tanum swam. He manifests himself to such a person, and it's up to Krishna. So that's the four of the teachings that were given by Prahlad to his father and to Hiranyakashipu, and we'll just repeat again. This is the way of taking shelter of the lotus feet of Prahlad Maharaj. Although he's not physically accessible, he's sound vibrationally accessible. And by that sound vibration, we can understand the mood or the mode of pure devotion. And we take that seriously, hear it, and apply it. And then we can also enter into that mood or mode of pure devotion. That's the benefit, along with this nice exchange that takes place between Prahlad and Lord Nrsingadev. Wonderful prayers, Lord Nrsingadev's reciprocation with him. It's a really wonderful section. But the teachings help us get to that place where have taken shelter of his lotus feet. Now, Hiranyakashipu didn't like it. He ordered for Prahlad Maharaj to be killed. Now there's a secret. And the secret is that if you're in a difficulty, Lord Nrsingadev is always there and he is observing and he's always protecting. But if things get really extreme, then we can expect. There was a question asked earlier today from the Farmington Hills group. Is it okay to pray to the Lord for protection? Absolutely. He's our protector. And it's not selfish. You take shelter of one who is very powerful, and you're eager for protection by that one who is powerful. But it doesn't take away the mood of service. It's not that they're supposed to serve you. It's you take shelter. This is one of the 6 limbs of surrender, where you're expecting, you have full faith that the Lord will protect you. No harm to ask for protection, rather than being independent or stoic or something like that. Prahlad is a servant. We hear that in his prayers. There's nothing else between us. You want me to take a benediction, but there's nothing else between us. He says it twice. You're the master, and I'm the servant, and there's nothing else. So please don't ask me to take something from you, because you're the master and I'm the servant. And it's not a good servant that wants something from the master, something material. It's not a good master who gives something material to the servant to gain following and so forth and so on. That's right in the prayers of Prahlad, which is also part of taking shelter of the instructions of Prahlad. So all of this is meant to be a little anticipation of Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day. I hope you will all take advantage of the next 2 days, reading over sections, perhaps your favorite sections, maybe some of the purports and the commentaries of our acharyas on this celebrated verse. Like Lord Chaitanya, hear it again and again, and relish the mood of pure devotional service that Prahlad came to teach. So let's see if there's some discussion. There's a little bit of time. We've gone for a whole hour. Who's our MC? I'll just invite anybody that would like to can kindly unmute yourself and present some question if you'd like to do that. And if there's nothing, we'll just go to our online questions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Naveen Krishnadas from Columbus.
Hey, Naveen. Hi, Krishna, Naveen.
Thank you. Very nice class. You did mention that Prahlad Maharaj story, Narsimha past one, is not much found in the other scriptures, but even that's also my understanding. So only the Bhagavatam made particular Bhagavatam has the speed. So did you come across any past times of the previous life of Prahlad? Was he, and then what made him to become a Prahlad? I heard a couple of stories, but I've never read it anywhere specifically. Like to comment on that one?
I'm like you. I've heard different things and have not been able to confirm those different things. So I don't like to say, I heard this and I heard that. So I'm going to pass.
Thank you, Maharaj.
It's easy to say I heard this and I heard that, but I don't know of anything authoritative. Sorry. Anything we have from our Facebook group? We have something over here if there's nothing over there. Go ahead.
Question from Radhika Kasturi. From yesterday's class, Kayatu forgot the narrations from Narada Muni. Did you say it was due to bad association of Hiranyakashipu, Raga Abhinivesh? Please clarify. I think it's today's.
Do you understand the question?
Yes, Maharaj.
Just say that he's going to repeat the question because I don't understand the question. In your own words, she's asking.
Mataji is asking if Kayatu forgot the narrations of Narada Muni.
Kayadu heard the same thing that Narada heard, the same thing that Prahlad heard. How come she forgot? What happened? Was she falling asleep or wasn't hearing attentively, or what's the reason that Kayadu forgot? The explanation that Prahlad gives is my mother also heard, but again in the association with Hiranyakashipu, her intelligence became covered and she forgot. By attachment to the temporary, you forget. Even good things you can forget. So beware of bad association. Don't hang out with Hiranyakashipu. You'll forget good stuff.
Radhika Kasturi asks again, is Prahlad Maharaj a Kripa Siddha?
Well, this is the same as Naveen Krishna's question. Was Prahlad Maharaj a Kripa Siddha? Well, it's not exactly the same question, but it's, it was he an ordinary fellow before he just received. He heard from Narada. Now, what was the eligibility for him to hear from Narada? How is it that he was able to hear from Narada and remember everything? Because most living entities that hear stuff when they're in the womb, they don't remember this stuff after they take birth. So there's something special about, is he Kripa Siddha? Well, it very much rests upon who was Prahlad in his previous life. What was the prior adhikar of Prahlad before hearing from Narada? So, what I'll do is, Naveen, I'll do a little research on this and see if I can come up with something definitive, and I'll forward it on to you if I do. And then you can share with others.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We have something in the room? Yes?
Hi, Hare Krishna Maharaj. How can we remember Krishna in distressful situations without blaming him for them?
Well, the second part of your question, without blaming him for them, would disqualify you from remembering Krishna's instructions. If, distressful situations come in life because we recently passed Ram Nomi's Ram Chandra's appearance day, and for the benefit of the Columbus folks and Detroit folks, I've been reading the entire Ramayana, Krishna Dharma's Ramayana, every evening, and we're almost done. But there's incident after incident after incident where there's some momentary forgetfulness because of a distressful situation. And one of the things that seems to help is there's a sadhu, or a composed person. It's sometimes it's different persons. Lakshmana pacifies Ram's distress by giving transcendental knowledge and so forth. So sadhu sangha is a really good way to remember Krishna's instructions when there's a distressful situation. And one of the things they often say is there's providential arrangements that there's nothing you can do about. Providential arrangements is another way of what we say in ISKCON, it's your karma, Prabhu. But, with great souls, it's not karma, because there's no karma for great souls. It's just some arrangement, like Ram says to Lakshman, about how it is that Kaikeyi said what Kaikeyi said. There's a classic. We're not Ram and Lakshman, but we can learn from them. And what he says is, it's completely out of character for Kaikeyi to say what she said and do what she did, and it's just there's only one way of understanding it. It's providential. No, he's like throwing his hands up in the air and saying it's the will of the Lord, and he's the Lord, which is a fact. It's the will of the Lord that Kaikeyi did what she did. Super soul within the heart of Kaikeyi, who is none different than Lord Ramachandra himself, or his expansion, induced Kaikeyi to do what Kaikeyi did. So that's a providential arrangement. It's not karma. So when things happen that are unexpected and outside of our control, we not just complacently shrug our shoulders and say, "Que sera, sera," but whatever will be, will be. But there are things that we cannot, due to our past involvement with the material energy, things are coming our way. If it's due to some mistake and some misfortune comes, so be it. And if it's if it's another kind, if it's something that Krishna wants to strengthen our determination, for devotees, it's often like that. Purify us and strengthen our determination to keep his shelter. Bhaktisiddhanta speaks like that all the time, or writes like that all the time. Take it that way. But so supposing your attention goes away from such wisdom, keep a sadhu close by. Keep close association with sadhus. Go to those persons who you look up to, and they're your well-wisher, and they're not going to whitewash things, but they have wisdom. Keep sadhus close by you. Keep in, not just when times are tough, keep sadhus close by you, so that you can stay firm on the path of bhakti, even when there's misfortune that comes your way. And then be flexible, yield. to the wisdom, not reluctantly, stay with that wise person long enough so it goes in. And it's not just young people your age, it's everybody. Challenges come for everyone. It's just the nature of the place. And so when that challenge comes, you, by good, strong sadhana practice today, you'll be more resilient and ready to respond to the difficult situation in a Krishna conscious manner. And if you get to the point where your Krishna consciousness is slipping away, take association. Okay? We have something else in the room over here. If there's anything online, you folks, you Prabhus have priority. Anyone online? We have something else in the room. We're going forward.
So Maharaj, like in that Prabhupada's introduction 7.6, what does this mode of spiritual activity means? Sorry, mode of spiritual life.
Let's go to that page. By accepting the lotus feet of Prahlada Maharaj, who is in the Parampara succession, one will be able to understand the mode of spiritual life. And he modifies it in accepting this mode of activity or spiritual life or activity. The mode, I kept using interchangeably mood on purpose because they have because it's not just the activities of bhakti, but it's the mode or the mood of Krishna should be pleased. You're the master and I'm the servant. That's it. That's the mode or the mood. It's submission in service.
Thank you.
Another?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, like in afternoon's class and today's class, we saw the saying like avoid bad association. So sometimes it feels like when we hear that, and there is a chance or there is a tendency even amongst devotees to become judgmental.
To become?
Judgmental.
Judgmental.
And it just feels like, based on whatever we read on Prabhupada's teachings, that as we progress in Krishna consciousness, the goal is actually to become more accepting of everyone. So
Okay.
I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Okay, sure. There's judgmental is quite different than discriminating in the healthy sense. One of the features of intelligence, one of the primary features of intelligence is to discern one thing from another thing. I mean, I studied this a little bit, not exhaustively, but IQ tests are to discern one thing from another thing. That's what that's a function of intelligence, discerning one thing from another thing. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is giving discerning parameters. The mode of goodness is like this. The mode of passion is like that. The mode of ignorance is something else. And we're encouraged to see according to those boundaries or parameters. Judgmental is, you're the judge and you're saying good and bad. Rather than see as Krishna sees. Here's a spirit soul. This is a spirit soul that's influenced by this mode, that mode, the other mode or combination. And that's Krishna's position. He's not judging like in a condescending way. He's just giving discerning features of intelligence. So we should be discerning. We should be seeking, let's take the Madhyama Adhikari position. The Madhyama Adhikari is supposed to see, or enjoined to see, there's God, then there's devotees, there's the innocent, And then there's the atheists. And we're given behaviors according to those categories. And amongst the devotees, those more advanced, those who are peers, those who are less advanced. If it's discerning, it's not judgmental. Judgmental is, you turn your nose up at those that aren't the advanced devotees, or you're looking down your nose at those that are less advanced devotees. That's judgmental. But we respect according to position. We seek association and give association according to the discerning of a Vaishnava's position. And we are careful to avoid unwholesome association like Prahlada. It's not a discrimination or judgmentalism. It's a factor of wisdom and Vaishnava etiquette. We don't shut our intelligence in the off position. We keep our intelligence in the on position, but not in the position of, not from the position, once I've understood something, to be a judge of it. That's where fault finding comes in. I'm the judge. You're guilty or innocent. That's not good. We should discern, but not judge. We see as Krishna sees. We have anything online? Because we have something online over here. Go ahead.
Question from Sachisuta Das. I heard about love your neighbor. How do I handle bad behavior and actions along with love in the soul platform?
Okay. Thank you. I like that question, because when I was, this little personal, once upon a time I was a young man. I was a teenager even. And when I was a teenager, I very seriously struggled. I had an existential dilemma with that teaching that's in the Bible that says, love your neighbor. Because I found there's lots of unlovable neighbors. And that's one of the very core teachings that Christ gave. And I wasn't able to do it. So I felt like, I'm a failure, or I don't know how to do this. And I struggled, and I went to different people, and I didn't get any clear answer. So I just kind of moved on. Then, after I started reading Bhagavad Gita and associating with devotees, I started to understand what that meant. What it meant is, it's not there in the Bible. It wasn't explained to me. There's a distinction between the behavior and the soul. There's a distinction between the covering and the soul. And the covering is the part that's not lovable sometimes. But the soul is lovable, because the soul is part and parcel of Krishna. It doesn't mean that external energy that's being misused, that's not part of Krishna. That's part of Krishna, but it's being misused. And so if somebody that does something harsh or hurtful, that's not lovable. Misbehavior, harsh behavior, hurtful behavior is not lovable, but the soul is. So if you love your neighbor, then you want to do something to help them get out of that spot of being under the influence of something that's hurtful to themselves and others. That's called service. To elevate. Anything back there? No? More? Okay, we'll take one more, and then we're gonna end. You have two?
There are 3 questions, 1 clarification.
Okay, let's go.
Question from Visalaksha Prabhu. What is spiritual activity and the spiritual mode referred here by Prahlad Maharaj, how to act in them in our daily life?
Well, that question was already asked. So let's go to the next one.
Clarification from Radhika Kasturi Mataji.
Yeah.
Her question is the phrase bad association of Hiranyakashipu, is that referred to as raga abhinivesh? Is that the term used to describe, is raga abhinivesh the term used to describe due to the bad association of a demon?
Not raga abhinivesh, dvitiya abhinivesh.
Question from Sanchari Dasi. How do we understand the moods of and interact with devotees who you have had limited to absolutely no association with, who feel a sense of familiarity with you because of your age or gender?
You smile. Yeah, it's harmless. Be friendly because they're friendly. Be friendly. Provided it's not unwholesome association type. That's where the discrimination part of the intelligence comes. But if they're social persons, you reciprocate with them accordingly. And keep your core Krishna consciousness intact, like this question over here, not just in some difficult situation, but even in some lively and social interactive situation. Keep your Krishna conscious core intact, and you'll be given intelligence by Krishna how to be in service to that other person. Okay, I think we're ready to close. Thank you all very much. Naveen?
Maharaj, we'll also take a minute to thank you. Ramesh Prabhu is coordinating with you right now.
Okay.
Columbus perspective, we want to thank you for giving it up. Hopefully we'll meet in person when things get better.
All right. Very nice. Thank you. And I'll do that research and I'll get back to you if I find the answer.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki
Thank you,
jai.
sir.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.